A lot of fights and a lot of stuff happened there. And I can hear the and I normally don't have 4 or 5 hours of tailgating before a game. So they get that parking lot, tailgate the whole they were ready. My son works at that stadium, and he's in security and processing. So if you get in trouble at MetLife Stadium, you see him. Yep, and he's funny. I'm like, how was it? He's like, oh my God. And now it seems like he told me he's been there, I think, 3 years now. And he was thinking about leaving because he's tired of drunk people. That's what he told me. And he goes, but now with World Cup coming, it's like, Joe, maybe don't work with people, maybe work concerts. But then the country concerts, he said, all stuff. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, in that corner.
Anybody anything? I'm sure Laura has some
It's 64 and 128. Yeah. I mean, it's
we're trying to like talk it up and not doing a free happy hour, and we're going to provide it to spaces.
And tell her we're live too.
Thank you. See ya. How are you? We're talking, we're doing Mother's Day. You gotta bring your friend.
We're set. We're live right now. I just moved the charger.
Yeah, we're getting that, and we're just trying to get the live on the other side.
Okay.
Just showing them
On that one?
on the one out by the big screen.
You gotta log into it. So you gotta go like log into it normal, and then click on this channel.
Okay.
I got you. Yeah, no.
I know, I will buy it.
You're right.
You built the building, I built the train, so here we are. Good. All right.
Yeah, it's that one TV out front.
Why is this not recording? Why is it not recording? Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon.
Not playing on there. It's like 3 people are waiting.
All right, give us just 1 minute to get everybody settled, and we're going to start our program. I know we're shoehorning you in here today, but that's because we don't have an interesting topic that people want to come and hear about. We're real excited to offer this to you today. I'm going to bring up Judy Ross in a second. My name is Jim Kirkus. I have the pleasure of leading the chamber and the CBB. We are self-proclaimed champions of the region and our members. And today's topic and the areas that we'll cover are just a little wet your whistle. This is to kick off the excitement about what World Cup 2026 will bring for us to this region. And we feel our obligation to make sure you, our stakeholders, are aware of everything that's going on. And that's what today is all about. We hope you have an opportunity to network amongst yourselves, both prior and afterwards. Later on, we'll have a little reception here later. But we've assembled a great panel, and Judy Ross will take you through that now. Welcome, Judy Ross.
Thank you for joining us today. As Jim mentioned, I'm Judy Ross, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to the Meadowlands and to MDES 24. Today, we are going to discuss the greatest opportunity in our future that will make the biggest impact on our region and on our great state. We are a full house today, so find your spot, get comfortable, and get ready for some great conversation. In addition to our esteemed panelists today, I do extend a very special welcome to our other distinguished guests. I want to welcome Robert Devno and Claudia Lopricio from New Jersey Sports and Exposition Authority. Joanne Simaluka and Mark McPartland of Bergen County Economic Development Corp. Mike is also the mayor of Edgewater. We have Tracy Zer with us, the Bergen County Commissioner. We have Mayor LaHuya from East Rutherford. I don't know if I saw him yet, Stephen Loicano from North Arlington. We also want to welcome our friends Mike Stiles, Alicia Quinn, and hopefully Ann Pilcher will be joining soon from the New Jersey Office of Travel and Tourism. And my dear friends Peggy Kelly and Rachel McKee of Hudson County Cultural Tourism and Cultural Affairs and Tourism Development. That's about it. And of course, our chamber and CVB board members. Welcome. Lastly, I do want to take a moment to thank all of our sponsors. Please take a note of the 2 banner signs that are out at the entrance. And if we could give a round of applause to them, as we always appreciate their generosity and could not produce these events without them. At this time, I would like to bring up the President and Chief Executive Officer of the New Jersey Sports and Exposition Authority, whose responsibilities include managing the Meadowlands Sports Complex, as well as other NJSEA properties. He's been a dedicated public servant for nearly 30 years, serving the people of Bergen County and the Meadowlands. Please welcome Mr. Paul Julian.
Thank you. And allow me to extend a special thank you to the Meadowlands Chamber led by Jim Kirkos, who's got to be one of the greatest leaders in this industry, and not in New Jersey, but in fact across the country. Thank you, Jimmy. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending the Meadowlands Meets the World. I'd like to thank the Meadowlands Chamber again for organizing this great event and preparing local businesses to maximize profits during the FIFA World Cup 2026. I would also like to give a special thanks to the New York, New Jersey 2026 World Cup Host Committee. I see represented by Bruce here from the New York side. Thank you, Bruce, for all that you do. The host committee is leading the way in ensuring that the region is prepared to deliver an amazing experience to more than 1 million guests expected to visit. The NJSEA has been working closely with the Chamber since 2017, when the U.S. Soccer Federation began working to bring FIFA World Cup to North America. Since that time, the Chamber has been working hand in hand with the state of New Jersey and the host committee on the critical tasks of securing sufficient hotel accommodations for the tournament, making connections to other PMOs, and working tirelessly to help market and promote FIFA World Cup 2026 in New Jersey. I am thrilled that our region is hosting the biggest sporting event in the world's history. The World Cup brings momentous economic benefits for the state's travel and tourism industry, and as well for restaurants and shopping destinations for small businesses, for cultural and historic sites, and so many more of our assets. The World Cup will also will leave a lasting legacy by highlighting the region's unparalleled diversity. I am proud to be part of this process and will see our region shine on the world stage. Thank you all so much for allowing me to prepare these brief remarks.
Okay, for anyone who does not know, MDEST is short for Meadowlands Destination. For over 18 years, on behalf of the Meadowlands Live CVB, it's been my privilege to promote and market the greater Meadowlands region. And we want to be a top choice destination. Even when I was not in the region, I was still a cheerleader for the Meadowlands region. Well, the time has come for this region to come together to show the world what this destination has to offer. There's a quote by Zig Ziglar that has motivated me throughout my career. It says, you have to do before you can be, and be before you can have. Well, this applies to our destination as well. We've already done in regards to big events like Copa and CONCACAF and WrestleMania twice, and Super Bowl and Army versus Navy. And we've even done World Cup back in '94. I've seen it and I've lived it. And heck, we named this area New Jersey's event capital. And we've learned a lot. And every time this region hosts a major event, we're even better for it. And you'll hear some of those lessons later. But now we have to be. We have to be smart and plan ahead. We have to be proactive and think about beautification and wayfinding signs in various languages. And of course, mobility. We have to be thinking about staffing and training our employees in customer service and diversity. There are a great deal of culinary programs in the area. Let's put our students to work. You do know that Hudson County is a melting pot, or as they like to say, a mosaic. And we have to be open-minded and work together. And we have to be prepared and be ready to welcome the world. Then and only then, we can have the biggest and best world's largest event, the best World Cup games ever, right here in the Meadowlands. Who's with me? And now, this. Fun. Here you go. Now I'd like to bring up Ron Simoncini and our first panel regarding mobility. The gentlemen, if their speakers would please take their seats.
Thank you, Judy. Hey, everybody. So I noticed in Judy's opening remarks that there's a little bit of defensiveness, and it's because of the Super Bowl that we're a little defensive. You can't blame us. You can't blame us. But to get started, some of the things that you hear about what happened with the Super Bowl were accurate, but the blame was a little misplaced. And so we don't need to dwell on any of that today because we're going to talk about what we're going to do in the future. But I'll just open with a little anecdote that Kevin and I were involved in recently on another transit job. And transit is the largest state transportation agency in the country, the third largest transportation organization in the country overall. And as Kevin told me recently, it was made up of a bunch of bankrupted railroads, and that's not the greatest business plan you can start out with. But the job that's done at transit is really tremendous. And I'll tell the story about the Super Bowl that I've told many times, and forgive the people in the room who've already heard it. I was there when Hearts Mountain hosted a meeting with transit, and transit explained to the NFL how they should consider transportation in our region during the Super Bowl. And that advice was disregard. So while transportation during the Super Bowl had its ups and downs for sure, I heard the advice that was given about transit, and I know that it wasn't taken. And you also hear sometimes that we didn't activate our communities enough during the Super Bowl, that New York got all the glory of the Super Bowl. And New York closed Broadway. So New York did a good job of utilizing an asset that it had, and we didn't have an asset to utilize. It was of the same scale. But however, if you look at the 7 most populated events that happened during the Super Bowl, only 1 was held in New York. All of the other 6 were held in New Jersey. And so we actually have a lot to be proud of the Super Bowl. We actually overcame a lot of challenges in the Super Bowl. We learned a lot in the Super Bowl, and a lot of it was transportation oriented. And our panel here today is going to talk a little bit about the preparation for the World Cup, which is actually in our region will be 8 Super Bowls. Because each of the games in the World Cup will be as largely attended as the Super Bowl was. And if you think about how the Super Bowl works, oftentimes the Super Bowl attracts people in the advertising businesses, the communications businesses, the legal businesses, and those people are all located in New York. And so what happens in the Super Bowl is people go from New York to the Super Bowl site. In our case, people were already in New York. And so our hotel population was different than it will be this time. This time we're going to have an international group of travelers. The Super Bowl has about 140 million viewers or so. At that time, probably a little more than 100 million. The World Cup has 1.2 billion for qualifying games. The final game even more. So you're looking at an enormous audience of people. 2/3 of the people who are going to come to this region during the World Cup will not see the game. They're coming simply to be closer to their team, which is a profound thing if you think about it. So transportation in the region is going to be more complex during World Cup than it was during Super Bowl, for sure. And the content that we're going to have to create in order to entertain those people, which our organization, I think, did pretty well during the Super Bowl, given the constraints that the NFL put on us. And one of those constraints was we had an ice sculpture with the NFL shield and the ice sculpture. We got a letter a week after we unveiled the ice sculpture from the NFL telling us that we had violated their intellectual property with a thing that had already melted. So that's just one example of how you can get obstacles put in your way in these issues. So Kevin and I were at an event a couple weeks ago. Transit shop is very hard. And at this particular event was the opening of the Metro Park train station, groundbreaking for Hackensack Meridian, an esteemed member of this organization, their headquarters office. And I said to Kevin, and he smiled because I think he felt the same way. After working a year and a half on that deal, everybody looked at each other at that groundbreaking with the relief of people who had just recovered from a disease. The difficulty of getting these things done with the agencies that overlap and conflict and need to correspond to some of these deals is very difficult. And that's what we're looking at for World Cup 2, maybe even more so. So I'm going to introduce each of our panelists, a little bit of background on where you've come from. Kevin, you'll start us off. A little bit of preview for us about how World Cup preparation is proceeding in transit, and then I'll go on to Michelle and Avnish. Kevin Corbett, President and CEO of New Jersey Transit.
Thank you, Ron, and I have to give a shout out to the Chamber and certainly Jim, just for everything. The Chamber has been there for New Jersey Transit. I'm the CEO of New Jersey Transit, and if you don't know what New Jersey Transit is, you probably don't belong in this room. But but just because everyone has their own perspective depending where you live and how you commute, whether it be car or by transit. We are the largest statewide transit agency in the country, and the third largest. The MTA is the largest in New York. Our partners on the other side of the river, and then Chicago is slightly ahead of us. So, for a lot of us, we come from smaller towns, and you don't realize the breadth of transit. And certainly, we are the legacy, like most transit agencies, that were out of the private railroads, Pennsylvania Railroad, the Erie, the Lackawanna, the Central New Jersey, et cetera, on the rail side. And on the bus side, we move more than 500,000 people a day by bus. Most people don't realize that. That is, public service and other private carriers that went out of business roughly 40-something years ago. We had to pick up from scratch. And 6+ years ago, when I came into the position, it was well-known fact we were in just a world of pain, and cannot thank the Chamber enough and others who know that we have a lot of great men and women working for us, both on our agreement, our union side as well as non-union, and they just were not given the resources. And there was a legacy of the Super Bowl that was hanging over our head. And I think, we had a lot of cleaning up to do. We made a lot of progress. I'm not saying that it was a yes. I mean, we can back it with substance. And we didn't have engineers. We didn't have bus operators. Our operation to the Meadowlands was a shoestring operation, bare bones minimum. And I think what you've seen over the years for transit, as we started to turn it around, is really getting the resources to be able to deliver and put to bed the ghost of the Super Bowl past. And I think a couple of lessons to Ron's point, lessons learned on that. Is sort of you plan the hunt and then hunt the plan, and there were what we know going forward, and I can talk more about that a little bit later, is lessons learned from that. But right now we now have fully a lot of new buses. Those are easier to replace. We also have new rail cars coming, but they take a longer lead time to manufacture. But we have full complement of engineers, train crews, bus operators. We have a lot of new buses. A lot of you have seen those, the Archie buses. So we're in a really good position, and I think we demonstrated that. You usually don't get a lot of good press in transit. We're the head of any agency anywhere around the world. We all have that. My wife's a trauma surgeon. When someone goes into the ER, they get gunshot wounds or whatever. They can't wait to get out of the hospital. No one comes back and thanks the doctor for saving their lives, right? They never want to see a hospital again. Same thing as the head of a transit agency. So my wife and I, we don't look for much sympathy when we get home. It comes with our territory. But there's no doubt that you really have seen significant improvement. And I think where you saw that in FIFA, certainly, Bruce, you could probably comment better than anyone. I know Lauren had a family emergency, couldn't be here, but transit was a big part of winning it. And in the press, we normally, in social media, we don't get praise on a day-to-day basis. But the best sign that we made progress, and I give John Mayer a lot of credit, when met with him early on about what we needed to do. And you look, it started really, I think, with the Korean BTS, the K-pop, where we really did a premium service. We had extra trains available. We had extra engineers, standby, extra buses. We complemented bus with our rail service. And now you saw, fast forward through a number of events where we kept refining and improving. This past year with Taylor Swift, where we were rated the best in the country by, independently of handling all the Taylor Swift contests. And actually, it was the only place where the timing went down rather than up for delay. We were actually, ahead of any of the others and actually reducing traffic and reducing congestion for Taylor Swift. And then also Beyonce. And what we really try to do is make it part of the fan experience. We had, again, it takes resources and money, but our customer service, Anthony Greco's team in the back there, they, we had signs, Queen Bee, and then we had, ambassadors, we call it, the stations, New York, Penn, Hoboken, Newark, Secaucus, obviously, the transfer, Army Navy game was a big success for us, where we had, and I may be a little biased here, but we had blue vest and yellow shirts, for, Army Navy blue and gold. But Army, we also had, black and yellow shirts for others, but we made it fun as part of the experience. And I think we crushed it we decorated the engines even, different, for the different teams. And it really makes it part of the fan experience. So it's not just even getting there. It's like and it was capped off by, as I say, normally don't get good press. We had Hoda on, the Today Show, and she was showing photos and was all saying how wonderful it was. That was a great experience. And, anybody who didn't take New Jersey Transit was crazy. Why drive? And then so it was Beyonce. We had a 3-page spread in the Sunday fashion section because everyone was there and it was all about our trains and our station. So that was the best publicity. I know even Pete Buttigieg, the Secretary of Transportation, was showing that around at his office. Sort of over the weekend, like, this is what we need to get. Transit needs is sort of sexy or image. You never get that in your routine, but I think all that was where a lot of hard work went to be on having those kind of results. So,
And that must be great for morale too, for your folks to see
Oh, yeah.
some of that. Because it is, look, it's very easy to, stories that point to the problems are 400 words. Stories that congratulate people for winning awards are 50 words. So everybody can be an analyst after the fact to talk about why a problem occurred. But when something goes as great as that went, it's got to be a real great internal thing for you guys.
And I know we'll talk more, just about some of the preparations we have, but we are going to bring the best world standards. We're cooperating from US DOT on down. New Jersey Transit has been active with the Union Internationale, the Transport Public, sort of the International Transit Association, where we're taking best practices from whether it was Qatar, Paris, Seoul, around the world and bring them, working with Rutgers. We have a collaboration with Rutgers Tate Center for Advanced Infrastructure and Transportation. And we're working collaboratively, obviously all coordinated through Lauren and Bruce. We know everything funnels through the host committee, so we need discipline within all these different moving pieces that you touched on. So really looking forward to that. But we're going to make sure that this is not just that we do a good job, but that we make this the best from the transportation side.
So I'm just going to stay with you for 1 second because the Transit's going to coordinate so much of what people are going to touch during the World Cup. In terms of how you guys are looking at options for moving people, and we've all heard a little whispers about different bus rapid transit opportunities, other things. How comfortable are you today to be able to say, look, here's our number one issue, and here are some of our thoughts on it, or is it premature for that?
I think I'm very, very comfortable that we'll be able to deliver good experiences, the examples I just gave, but it's going to be like that every day. We also have the fan experience that's down, at Liberty State Park. So that kind of, getting people around. And, the Super Bowl, you only had 2 teams. And Bruce, you tell me how many teams are going to be here for over those 8 games and where are they going to be housed? How do they move around? Right. So,
Are you looking for houses to rent? Because I got a nice house. I just want to get that out of the way now. If there's a line.
But so, you take that, so there's the actual games themselves, but it's also making sure we incorporate, so they say to be the best in class worldwide when they leave here, that all those different aspects, and a lot of that will touch on tourism, et cetera, that experience. As I say, I'm part of this international transit organization. soon as we were announced, I had, the guy from Rio was, hey, can you get me a ticket? Like, I mean, people don't underappreciate soccer, and I lived overseas in my earlier year in the private sector, and around the world, what we call soccer it is beyond passion and crazy. So the intensity and passion we're going to be getting into hosting, and you're going to have 1.5 billion people watching on TV. We're going to, if anybody's been overseas and knows what soccer is like overseas, it's going to be a very intense experience. So we'll be up for that challenge. So we do have the Meadowlands, we do have some special projects that I could talk about.
So one more quick question before we move on. In the selection process, and a few of us here were there when it was announced, which is an amazing moment to see the governor. The governor had a little vertical. He jumped out of his chair and looked a little like Larry Bird in a way. But if you could just give us just a little bit of insight into how much FIFA review and sort of scrutiny was there on transportation solutions before we were selected.
Everything we do was intense. I remember when we were down at the W Hotel when we were first going into the bid. I mean, if you look at, you see with these mega events, and that's one thing we're learning from our colleagues internationally, more and more, and again, it's probably more Bruce's wheelhouse on this, but the importance of reducing carbon emissions, being transit friendly. You see that a lot with a lot of the stars like Taylor Swift and everything is not just for, making sure people get from A to B. They want it to be on transit. There's equity issues, environmental issues, very conscious of that kind of thing. And for FIFA, it was made very clear that transportation was a critical element. And I'd say I'm friendly with the people down in Texas, the people at DART, et cetera, but there's no doubt, I think what we proved, I really do believe was helpful in showing how we executed with the Taylor Swift, some of the Army-Navy game, and how we're able to not just adequately do it, but to do it where it was fun, part of where the experience started when you got on New York Penn Station. I think that affected a lot of that. I think that was certainly helpful. Again, I defer to Bruce, but everything I heard of that was that kind of transportation is really one of the critical elements they look at.
All right, I'm going to move on to Michelle now, but before I do, one more question. How many buses does Engine Transit operate?
About 2,500.
Michelle, tell us a little bit about Panorama Tours.
Well, I can tell you I don't have 2,500.
I said that early.
Hi, everybody. My name is Michelle Pekalitsky. I am a small woman-owned bus company right here in Wellington, just a few miles away from here. I have 15 coaches. But I am also vice president of the Greater Northeast Motor Coach Association, in which we do have well over 650 buses within our association. I'll talk a little bit about Panorama, then I'll talk a little bit about our industry from the motor coach private side, just to give you a feel for how we plan on supporting transit through all of this. Panorama Tours started back in '95. My dad started with one bus. We grew, and now today at our 15, we try to support our community from a number of different avenues, whether it's school, whether it's military movement, whether it's evacuations, but the private sector tries to essentially do movements that support those around us. We supplement transit as best as we can. We try to go to the underutilized markets in order to try to move them to the hubs to provide further transportation. And we're essentially here as a support. And that's what we hope to do moving forward with the games, with the World Cup. From the Greater Northeast Motor Coach Association side, we are 150 members strong at this point in time, 65 of which are operators that own their own equipment. It's not brokers, so when you go to us, you're going to the actual operator that has the equipment. We were a big part of the Super Bowl from a very, very different perspective. We supported from the fans, the friends, the entertainment, the private side that was not directly back and forth as you had out of the depots. One of the things that we learned from that is that we did it very, very well, but there were a lot of pieces in which we could have been maximized better. The biggest is the return trip homes. When everybody was leaving, our buses were empty. We had already done what we needed to do, and you guys needed so much more support, and we were empty, and there was nothing we could do about it. So we did learn from that, and we hope to utilize that information moving forward for when we go to the World Cup. The motor coach industry as a whole is very, very safe. Most of us are family owned, So we work very, very hard on customer service. We work very hard on making sure that we cater to what it is that you're looking for specifically. And we make sure that we're doing everything we can because at the end of the day, we're protecting our friends, our family, our people. They did a study back in 2019 that ran from 19 to 21 in which the number of fatalities on the road were over 108,000 people that perished on the road. Of that, only 9 were in motor coaches. So that gives you an idea as to how much we really care about safety. When it comes to the World Cup in general, we're here to partner. We're here to support, and we're here to just do whatever we can in order to make us successful here in the region and to be in front of the world as the place that can take care of us. So that's pretty much.
So quick question on in terms of the association and the number of folks who you guys have as sort of a collective, will that collective act in a collaborative way through this, or how will each of you attempt to provide services through this unique situation?
So we do that a couple of different ways. With the Super Bowl, we worked both privately and everybody was chartered individually, and we also worked that Game Day was employed by the NFL at that time, and Game Day coordinated. I do not know if there's going to be a transportation management system that's going to come into play. It might be TMS. There might be somebody who is going to be coordinating, because again, our industry, we tend to be smaller operators. In fact, of all of our operators, 88% is 20 vehicles or less. So we are small family-owned operators, and there is some coordination that comes into play, and that's where those transportation management systems, such as TMS, may work out. But we're also privately chartered, whether it's through particular teams or through certain hotels or via airlines, in which we'll be coordinating that effort.
I'm sure Bruce will talk later about how some of the resources that we can bring to the table end up being vetted by the FIFA folks in the host committee. But in your mind, what's the one thing you'd like to be invited into in terms of a conversation of this thing?
I just want to be at the table when the discussion is had so that our input is heard. I feel that because the private sector is not the big money at the table, oftentimes we're overlooked and not heard. So I brought it up when we had the assembly persons and senators here the other couple weeks ago. It's very, very important for the local community to be a part of it because we live here, we work here, we want to be successful. We want all of the destinations to be successful. We want to maximize the money that gets brought in here. And at the end of the day, we want that impression to be positive, that we are the region to go to.
Thank you. So Avnish, many of you may not know that Meadowlink and Easy Ride were established right here in the chamber, good 30 years ago now, I believe? 40 years ago. So the Meadowlands Chamber has had obviously a significant interest in mobility through its 51-year history. And one of the permutations of that interest has been the development of Meadowlink, which Christian's not here today, but Avnish and Krishna have been operating jointly together for all those years. Your vehicles are pretty much committed to the routes that you run now. And I think that the interesting conversation that we've had over the years is, how do you end up being able to take some of your resources and make them available in this situation when you've already got commitments for the routes that you already run and the customers you already have? So could you describe a little bit about what Easy Ride's doing and Meadowlink is doing and what you think your role in the World Cup might be?
Sure. First of all, thank you for inviting Easy Ride to this gathering, and we are really happy to be a part of it. As Ron mentioned, we were set up in 1983. We are a non-profit, and at that time we were set up right after the first gas crisis, when employers were finding it difficult to get their employees in, and employees were finding it difficult to get to their jobs. So that's the time when some forward-thinking people, first and foremost being Rich Fritzky from the chamber and Rich Roberts, who is now retired from Engine Transit, these two forward-thinking people created what we now know as Easy Ride. At that time, the legal name is Meadowlands Transportation Brokerage Corporation. That's how we started off. The focus at that time was Meadowlands, and of course, gradually the programs expanded. We went beyond Meadowlands, and then it became more appropriate to take a more suitable name, Easy Ride. What we do is we fill the gap in public transit because we are a small nonprofit. Transit is there to take care of the large trunk routes, big services, and we fill the gap in public transit wherever we need connections to those transit hubs. That's how the company started off, initially with setting up massive van pool programs. Then over the years, with trip reduction programs came in, we shifted our focus to seniors. Then we shifted to people with disabilities. And at this point, Easy Ride is running a statewide program providing transportation with Uber and Lyft for over 100,000 rides a year. So this scale of event is huge. It is massive. And as I sat down thinking and brainstormed with my CEO, Krishna, what can we do as a small nonprofit? Some thoughts that came to our head, I would like to share with you if that's okay. The seating capacity is, just we all know, is 82,500 spectators. But that will, in addition, bring so many more people, emergency workers, staff, security, VVIPs, heads of state and their own complete caravans of people that will come. We are going to have millions of people. From 2006, I came across a case study on internet. In Germany, when World Cup was held, 27 million people were there watching the game off-site in towns, in cities around that. So the scale of transportation that we will need is huge, if huge can be all caps. And then some ideas that we came up with is, I don't know if these ideas have already been implemented, I'm sure people are thinking about it, but these are something which we thought of. We have all experienced when we go to board on aircrafts, airlines have come up with groups. Is FIFA going to consider attaching some kind of groups with different tickets that they're going to sell? Can they attach an arrival time so that travel of people is going to be staggered and not everybody is going to come at the last hour? From the statistics that I came across, 65% people in last World Cup, Qatar, traveled in the peak hour. Is that something we want to repeat? Or are we going to be able to attach some stagger so that different levels of tickets, different levels of people coming to the games are given a time to arrive? Could be as simple as that. So you can stagger the time. It will ease the pressure on transit when they are ferrying people from Sea Caucus to Meadowlands on their trains. It will ease the pressure on buses which are going to be coming on the BRT, bus rapid transit system, which I hear are going to be there. That could be one option to consider if FIFA is going to do it or not. Meadowlands, in America, we have the tailgating. I don't know if tailgating is something going to be allowed on these games. That is something which we need to consider. Are we really going to have long-term parties just like we do in our football games? Hotels, are they going to?
Yes, by the way.
Okay.
The party thing is happening for sure. We got a plan for that.
Awesome,
So
that's good to know.
it's not for this event, but there's a plan for that.
Awesome. Are the hotels going to create hospitality packages so that people coming to their visit to live with them, they will not need to worry about how to get to this game from the hotel? That is something which hospitality packages should be done. I'm sure it's being done. If the transit resources of the buses and what the association is going to bring together, we may need to pool school buses into the system. They are not the most fancy looking and very comfortable looking, but if push comes to shove, if we need resources, I think we should actively think about bringing school buses into the system, because the goal is to keep cars off the road to the extent we can. If we have millions of cars coming on the streets, you're going to have a traffic jam, whatever we may do. So the idea is to put large capacity vehicles, and school buses should be considered. Of course, finally, these taxis are going to be used, and from the statistics that I came across, 57% people traveled on transit. in Qatar. 13% people were on taxis. 6% were people walking and biking to the sites. I don't know if that is something which will be there. If the stadium is going to be connected through walkways and bicycle ways, that's probably not going to happen in our case. But that is something which people are used to doing in Europe and some other countries. And guess what? If one of our US teams is playing any of those 8 matches, the traffic is just going to go crazier. We have 8 games planned in the area, total of 8. And if a US team, if our own team is playing, you're going to have a much bigger number of people coming here. That's for sure. What Easy Ride would like to do is, we would like to be on the table when you are thinking about these things. We would help to think through the stages of different plans. There are staging areas which need to be created. There are brokerage services which will need to be put together. Resources coming from out of state will need to be put together in some way. And we would like to be there to help with all of these thinking processes and to bring resources together. Thank you.
A quick question for you before we depart. Easy Ride and Meadowlink have always been involved in a lot of transportation policy discussions and served with a lot of organizations relative to some of the larger infrastructure issues and people mobility issues. Just name a couple of the places where you guys are active in terms of providing sort of brain power to some of those organizations in the state and nationally.
At this point, we have our shuttle program running for the from Secaucus train station coming to Harmon Meadow. All the Harsh properties, they have a few million square feet of space in hotels and offices. So we have a shuttle program which connects Secaucus train station to Harmon Meadow Mall and the work sites around that area. We have a program which runs for Essex County from Newark Penn Station. This is called Night Owl. It runs from 1 a.m. in the morning till 5 a.m. Pre-COVID, we were transporting over 400, 500 people every night, picking them up from their homes, bringing them to Newark Penn Station, and they would travel to the airport on New Jersey Transit buses. People coming back from work, they come to Newark Penn Station, and our shuttles would take them home for the last mile. These are the 2 key programs that we have been running successfully. Apart from that, there are many smaller programs. We had shore shuttles when we were connecting towns along the shore from train stations, taking people to the beaches, and also running senior transportation programs with Lyft and Uber.
So we only have about 9 minutes left in our panel, and we're definitely going to end on time. So I want to leave some room for any questions that we might get from our audience here. There's plenty of folks here. For media, you can ask questions now, but we'll make everybody available to you for stand-ups and interviews after the session. Kevin, you've heard all this stuff, and I'm sure it triggered some thoughts in your mind as you've been sitting there. Where's transit come in relative to some of the issues you've heard raised here, and what else has this sort of triggered in your mind as we've been talking?
I think, Ron, thanks. A couple of things, Michelle, you touched on it about, there's going to be VIPs, there's going to be, and one thing for us for transit, we need to move a large volume of people very quickly. As Michelle mentioned, the end of the game is where you get the crunch. People can come in staggered, more staggered coming in. The end of the game, it all comes out, great many are going to go one right out. So we really have to make sure that, as I said, we need to have that plan in place. We are going ahead with our dedicated bus right away that we touched on as far as the Secaucus, as we're calling it, the Meadowlands Transitway project. That'll be the design will be finished by next spring, and it's using existing turnpike and state roads to be able to have it dedicated right away so that if there's, think of when you have a traffic jam, a lot of times you're driving, even if you're heading southbound and there's an accident on the northbound lane, you have all this rubbernecking that causes delays and you can be backed up for a half hour just to be going through something when actually your side of the road is fine. So we really have to make sure that we have it dedicated right away so we can keep that flow. So, you cannot even have a 5-minute delay, all of a sudden start backing up and you'll have people jammed up, getting crowded. We have to keep that flow going. So that's critical, but we also know that we have to allow for the VIPs, and so getting that transportation plan, working with MetLife and any of the other communities, depends where the services are, and with our partners, that it's well orchestrated and well rehearsed beforehand, so that we're not having things sort of left to the last minute, having state troopers or local police stopping us here, stopping there, and that's where the system will break down. So having a really tight control, the dedicated right of way, and the combination between our buses on dedicated right of way and our rail service, which will be robust, all multi-level car trains with extra trains in reserve, so we can pull them back in and out quicker, like we've been doing recently, so that we'll be able to have that big majority of people moving out, and also doing it in a way that allows the private carriers and Uber and Lyft. You touched on that. One thing we've seen that I say that's a concern, and we're working with USDOT because we're looking at it nationally. They want to make sure it's nationally success, even coordinating. I know Bruce can talk that on with Canada and Mexico, and for us in Northeast Quarter from Philadelphia, Boston, there's a lot of interplay here. It's all got to be well-oiled machine when it hits the ground. But the Uber and Lyft factor, one thing we see now working with MetLife, we watch on the pricing because they have dynamic pricing, we're fixed pricing. And we'll see on the cameras on inside that room and inside the stadium, the security room, we'll see when the price of Uber starts going from like $20 to $40 or $50, you will see visibly, you can see from people start moving from the Uber Lyft over to New Jersey Transit side of the stadium. So taking that into account, those swings, all that has to be well orchestrated and prepared so that we're prepared to deal with that on both sides, whichever way it goes. So those kind of details are going to be really important.
So two aspects of what you touched on there. American Dream was under construction during the Super Bowl, and some of those roadways were closed. And certainly technology and rideshare and those issues have advanced massively in the last 12 years. Help or hurt?
Definitely help, and I think also to a degree with American Dream, both before and after people were there, that can help spread out that big crunch to the degree that there's other activities. And then technology is a huge, if you use it right and tap into it and be well prepared, can be a real big asset, communicating to crowds as well, but also for us to be able to monitor very quickly and be more adaptable because we have more eyes in the sky for a kind of thing to be able to see it all and adapt quickly.
So we've got about 5 minutes left, and I've got some more questions, but I want to make sure everybody gets a chance. Any questions that we can? The question is, how about pedestrian mobility from Spring Hill Suites to the sports complex? Help yourself.
There were some really great ideas, and I'm glad to see it, but there are a lot of local hotels in this area where it's easier to get to MetLife Stadium from New York City than it is from our local hotels. And that really needs to be taken into consideration. We can put hospitality packages together, but people are looking for other access and opportunities to get to the stadium and to get to different events.
Is there a shuttle program from your hotel?
There's not. We have a third party that we work with.
So if I could jump in really quick, that's where a private partner would come in. Because of the timing, it is the end of the school year. We have a number of carriers at our school bus companies as well to run a shuttle through some sort of a route. I know we talked about it for the transplant games as well, to run that type of shuttle to provide some sort of a timing. It's not an on-demand, but it is something that helps to aid in that. I don't think transit's going to be tied into mass movements in already existing routes, but that's a place where the private carrier really can help out a lot.
If I may just add one thought to it, sorry. See, what we are talking about today is just those 8 games for which that are going to be hosted in this area. What you are talking about is a long-term solution for your small hotels being connected with this. And that's a very valid point. We need to think in terms of long-term solutions. If we can solve the puzzle of these 8 games, I think it will give us the direction. Same solutions could be implemented. BRT is being developed. They are developing a bus rapid transit lane to connect all the way from Secaucus coming into the stadium. We should have some dedicated lanes within the local communities. For that day, just to take care of, maybe we should consider declaring a gridlock day, just like New York City does when major events are taking place, to remove some traffic which is coming in the area and help those buses get through. Otherwise, you're going to have problems.
And it's also, like Ron said, the walkability.
There's not walkability. It's a highway. You can't walk across that highway. It's 5 years of talking about it. You cannot walk across that road. You have a question over here?
One thing I'd add just before Judge, is is on that though, to touch into, again, what we were just saying here, they're all complementary. So we're moving large volumes of New Jersey Transit, but there's a lot of a hub and spoke. I think we mentioned first mile, last mile. So whether it be private charters, Uber, Lyft, how do we, it may not just be having a bus going directly from your hotel to the stadium. What's the quickest way for people, but reliably, conveniently to go from A to B? And I think it's going to be a combination of all of them.
Yeah, how you doing? Dale Erico, Railroad Construction. We were fortunate to be the successful bidder, putting the train line and station into MetLife Stadium, Jet Stadium. But no, it's been a rough year.
The Jets have as much chance of playing in the World Cup as they do the Super Bowl.
The vice president will be there though. But just a question though, appreciate great job guys up here, but any future with the additional rail extension coming around possibly, or any mobility or additional rail? That's my only question.
No, I would say they'll realistically look at the time frame, any environmental work, et cetera. We'll have an enhanced capacity like we've been doing for games, but in additional work with the time frame we have, no, I think longer term, that's a discussion with Sports Authority, obviously. How do we capitalize on this? So after World Cup goes, that we keep that momentum going afterwards. And that would be part of the longer term vision, but we're looking 2 years, want to make sure it's really tight and realistic, not something that's conditional on public bidding process, et cetera, et cetera.
So
So you don't anticipate any of those issues coming up with regard to the transit company? You've got
No, we've been working on it. You may remember before COVID, when we started doing we did a request for interest in, ways looking at how can we improve our Meadowlands service. We did sort of a exposition, and so this was now growth of it. But that was one of the key things, to find a way that we did not have to go through extensive environmental permitting, using existing infrastructure that's in place, so that that could easily add a year, 2 years. So no, we did it so that would not be. That was directly one of the reasons it is the way.
people do you anticipate building the
Our goal is up to, Transit Way all total, it breaks down. Right now, we move, 10, 12,000 an hour is a good number. We're looking to double that capacity between Transit Way and our existing service.
Ivan, if I can, I just want to add something.
Jim Kirkos.
I want to add something.
It's your
Jim
plan. You can ask
Kirkos.
whatever you want.
This morning learned that we are on the agenda at NJSEA next week for a $500,000 grant to do a World Cup, to do a convention center study at the Meadowlands. Mark Giuliano sitting in the front row here. You got to stand up and wave to everybody.
Well, now you know why you were asked, right?
The support that we've got has been absolutely awesome. So thank you.
So I want to go back to what Avni said, because Avni, you're a great thinker about these things, and I appreciate that. Sometimes when we do these big events, they become the nucleus for broader, more long-term thinking from a public affairs advocacy standpoint. And for the policymakers that are in the room, and for my friend Paul Giuliano, the Sports Authority, and those that are on his team, we do need to be thinking about this. When the sports complex was created, right, the sports complex itself, it was meant to bring people into it, but there was no walkability. And Lauren, even though she's been asking this question for 5 years, and we teased her, it's okay. No, you're right to bring it up. But the fact of the matter is, it was poor planning back then. It was very poor planning. Right? We can't get away from that. How could there be 7 hotels immediately across from the sports complex? They can't get into the place without getting killed on 120 or Patterson Plank Road, and so forth. So it was poor planning. So this is an opportunity for us to put some short-term fixes, right, and mobility plans for the game, and then think about how we fix it long-term, so that we don't have to do this the next Super Bowl we get, or the next World Cup we get, or the next big game we get. Sometimes these become the nucleus for change in that infrastructure, so that we can identify those problems. So we're gonna do that, right? As an advocacy organization, we're gonna make sure that, yes, we want to deal with the solutions at hand of moving people and taking care of the game and making a great fan experience and visitor experience, but we're not we're not gonna not talk about this anymore, Lauren. We tease,
No,
we're
but
gonna
I'm
continue.
thinking like Yankee Stadium. You can take the train to Yankee Stadium, and they have all those walkways over the highways.
So, and I'll say that I have fun with Lauren about this
I
time.
understand.
But the fact of the matter is,
Be aware.
there would be a lot more hotel development on Patterson Pike Road if it was walkable.
Yeah.
And so your point's very well taken. However, I don't want to see any of your guests get run over by cars as they try to walk across that street. So we have another question.
Hi, my name is Nadia. I'm actually the COO of Golden Eagle Shuttles, and I'm one of Lauren's. I'm the third party partner that she's talking about. And like Michelle, my father started our transportation company in '97 with one van, and we, for 25 years up until COVID, we made it easy for guests in North Bergen, Hudson County, to get to Times Square. So we provided shuttle service for 8 hotels in North Bergen, partnering with all of them and taking them to New York City on a daily basis. And that's what we did up until COVID. Now we're pivoting more, and Lauren's hotel, all of 2023 was an experiment for us to see if there's a demand for hotel guests that will want to pay a premium price to go to MetLife without having to deal with the traffic and everything. So we're definitely one of those people. We're really small right now, and we're thinking ahead and want to be in the conversation as well, to be this partner that you are all looking for in terms of the gaps. And two interesting things was I actually went to the World Cup in Russia, and walkability is a huge, huge problem in the United States, especially in this tri-state area. So I really hope maybe they can create something, but if anything, bus lanes would be incredible for us right across Lauren's Hotel. If we get stuck on that left turn on 120, I mean, the ride is 5 minutes, but it might take us 35 minutes. But our drivers are just so aggressive and smart and safe.
Sounds like, is it in that order? It's aggressive, smart, and safe, or is it safe, smart, and aggressive?
Depends on the event.
And look.
They get people there on time. For us, it's just about making it easy for people to get to these beautiful places. New York City has been our bread and butter, so we made sure that people were able to get there efficiently, affordably, and with being able to be reliable. Another idea that we've thought, if we are able to get more agreements with hotels, is maybe creating our own app, where it might just be a limited amount of time for the World Cup, where hotel guests can kind of consolidate and we can become like that hotel shuttle service. So definitely a different route or a bus lane would help people like us, and that would just fill in the gap for the immense amount of volume that is going to be on the road. And I think the gridlock is a great idea. I think that's where you should be aggressive, where people shouldn't be allowed to drive. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm right here, so if you want to talk.
Suggestion pricing.
Anything else? Commissioner, anything from you?
Go ahead, Mayor. Mayor, please.
Mayor Hillier.
Mayor Louis from East Rutherford, I would thank the committee for putting this all together. It's very crucial that this had to be done. I have Councilman Cronk here, I have Councilman DeRosa here, I have my deputy chief here, Tommy Belinsky. My concern as of right now, and I know it's very early in the game, is I don't know if the state police, anybody from the state police is here, but as on any game day, East Rutherford does not police the stadium so-called down there. We have police officers on the perimeter all the time directing traffic. So whatever is going to take place, whether there's going to be subcommittees where we get a little deeper in the weeds with how our police department, our fire department, our first responders are going to interface, that's very, very important to us right now, as all the factors that make this up. But right now, and again, I don't know if there's going to be a subcommittee, we would like to be on that, but we need to make sure that we get together with the state police. And it's 2.5 years, but listen, 2.5 years with
So Mayor, on that topic, when Larry was chief, I know that he had a lot of access, and he certainly was somebody that people consulted with all the time. Over the years since the Super Bowl, has the outreach from agencies in the state improved, not improved? How is that going in terms of communication between the municipalities and the chiefs?
you could probably respond to that better than I.
I've been reaching out to them and, we're developing a good working relationship. It is in a positive direction.
All right, absent another question, I think we're concluded with this panel and take a couple of minutes and then we'll start up the next one. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
We have the same issue with the track. I mean, when you walk to the station, you say, yes, it's more available to you. But it's not easy.
When you